About every 3 months or so, we like to have Joe Ricchio stop by the 207 studio. He's a food and travel writer, host of the Food Coma podcast, and he knows so much about Maine food and has so much enthusiasm for it that it's always fun to talk food with you. Thanks for coming in. Good to have you here.
It's great to be here.
So we were trying to come up with a good topic, and you suggested this one, which I liked, which was simply some of the favorite things that you have eaten in 2022 so far.
Right, because I mean, it's easy to be enthusiastic about that. You know, I'm like, well, it's when I'm racking my brain, I'm like, well, let's think of things that like I've eaten that kind of like, you know, roll your eyes back in your head, good, memorable, like want to have again immediately. So
you narrowed the list down to a half dozen. Let's begin with one from a new restaurant, 12 in Portland, down on the waterfront near the Ocean Gateway Terminal. You are pretty excited about the Lobster Roll you had there.
I am, and yes, everybody's talking about 12, and you know, you never know about the hype, but it lives up to it. And this Lobster Roll, I mean, maybe the best I've ever had in my life. I mean, you know, the lobster itself is beautiful and perfect and rich, but it's this croissant sort of flaky pastry roll that feels like it has, you know, a million layers to it, and it's just like perfectly crispy but chewy and like so it's like it evokes a lobster roll, so you don't feel like it's too out of the box, but you're like, this is one of the best things I've ever eaten. It's absolutely insane.
I am impressed because coming from you, that is high
some
praise.
Lobster rolls, yeah.
Another one on the list, the burger at Wayside in Portland.
Yes, the burger, and again, people know about it now. You can only get it on Sunday and Monday. It's a local kind of a cult thing, but it is a smash burger. They make their own kind of like, they sort of like manipulate fontina cheese, so it's like American on a, you know, toasted potato bun, Dijonnaise, bread and butter pickles. It's like caramelized onions. I ate one, and I had worked there for a little bit, and I never got to have one. Then, like, finally, when I got to sit down, and I literally ate one, and I was like, if there weren't people around, I would have another one of these right now. Like, if people weren't watching me, I would eat another one of these burgers consecutively. I mean,
but that kind of thing doesn't stop me. Why were you so embarrassed? Why were you so touchy about it?
I'm very vain for an overweight person. I don't really understand, but you know.
One more from Portland, and then we're going to get to some other places outside of the city. Super Beef at George's North Shore, which is actually a food truck in Portland.
Yes, it is. And if you are familiar with North Shore of Massachusetts, then you know that whatever you grew up on, considering a roast beef sandwich elsewhere, is just not what it should be, you know. And George's North Shore, you know, Logan, he gets that perfect, like this high, like just rare roast beef, you know, sauce, cheese melted on like a pillowy, like toasted onion roll. It just like melts in your mouth. It's messy. It's like everything. I feel like they should put a super beef on like the Massachusetts state flag, because that's my favorite thing about Massachusetts, and they bring it here in Maine now. So.
I do. I love those roast beef places that when you're going down Route 1, you're getting closer to Boston, and there they are on your right and left. They're pretty good.
Yeah, and they're but like all three. It's almost like the House of Pizza in Maine. You know, it's like they're everywhere, and they all kind of have a similar formula, but we could talk a whole episode about those.
Let's move on to Bath with something simple yet elegant, an almond croissant from Solo Bakery that you love.
Yes, it is one of those things where you're like, oh, that's an almond croissant. There's some little powdered sugar on top. I've had plenty of those. And then you go to eat it, and there's like a filling in it, like an almond filling. And it's one of those things, I talked about rolling your eyes back in your head earlier, where you take a bite and you're like, you're having a conversation with somebody, that conversation ends because you're like, hold on, like, what is going on with this? Like, and you're like, again, you get the compulsion to be like, I just want to keep eating these, no matter how much sugar and whatever's happening to me. Like the texture of that, like when you get that perfectly flaky, crispy outside, but when it's like so like chewy and just perfect in the middle. I mean, that thing. I mean, and they do it also at their South Portland location as well.
I love I love tuna melts, rather. I love crab rolls. You love the crab melt at Dennett's Wharf in Castine.
I do. I will always, crab melt's one of those things, if I see on the menu, I'm pretty much always going to order it. I don't know why. It's just like, outside of what previously discussed, the 12 lobster, like I generally prefer crab to lobster for whatever reason. And this is just, you know, that like, you know, this thick, tons of crab, like melted Swiss tomato on like the toasted bread, and it's just like, it's so just decadent but summery at the same time, and you're on the water, you're on the deck, and that place is seasonal. They're closed currently, but they'll be reopened in the, you know.
Let's end in Kittery with the Okonomiyaki at Anju Noodle Bar. What you like about it?
Well, so it's a Japanese-style cabbage pancake, the Okonomiyaki. And they do it like kind of a little bit of fusion. They could do some kimchi in there, pork belly. It's just one of those things, those comfort foods that hits all of the notes of like, it's spicy, it's salty, there's so much umami to it, it's rich, it's unctuous. Some people hate that word with food, but I like it. It's unctuous, whatever. It's like this thick, and I haven't had many okonomiyaki that I didn't like, to be honest, but this is absolutely one of my favorites. And the whole restaurant is fantastic, all the things they do. But
that is 6 of your favorite things.
I just went through 6 fast.
From
huh?
2022.
It's not over.
We may get to more. The year is not over. We
Not
may
over.
revisit the subject before December 31st.
I'd love to.
Joe Ricchio, a pleasure, as always. If you want to see the full list, head to our website or app, the 207 section, and stick around. We will be back in a moment.